about this.
This album is not for me or for you or anybody else. This album is for God. And you can't jive God, Jerry.
The moment I wake up, before I put on my makeup, I say a little prayer for you. Welcome to Devotion Yoga, a channel dedicated to yoga philosophy and sometimes videos about Aretha Franklin. Today, we're going to talk about the connection between Aretha Franklin's career and one verse from the Bhagavad-gita by Krishna. So I'm here in Zagreb at the Bhakti Yoga Center in the guest room of the Bhakti Yoga Center in central Zagreb. It's a really cool little program. They have a really nice vegan restaurant where they offer to guests who come to the place delicious, fresh food offered to Krishna. And just the other day, and so I'm grateful to be a guest here. I'm here for a few more days before I go on to Ukraine and then back to good old France on the 21st of September. I watched the movie, and I really recommend you watch it if you haven't yet, called Respect. It's a movie, the title Respect is after one of the most famous songs of Aretha Franklin, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means. I grew up listening to Aretha Franklin, even though she was from, a slightly older generation than me. I still listen to her because, they say that she's the queen of soul, and boy, was she the queen of soul. And so the reason why I want to make this video is because, as you know, I follow the teachings of Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita, and there's a verse in there, which is a very important verse that talks about a universal principle of devotion to God, which I think Aretha Franklin exemplified super well in her life. So here, I'm going to put right now a scene in the movie from Aretha Franklin. I hope I'm not going to get flagged down by the YouTube algorithm. Watch this and then see what I have to say about it later.
What y'all want to say?
An all-gospel record has a very limited audience.
I don't care.
You do care. You sat in that office with me 6 years ago and you said you wanted to make hits, and I think you still do.
I'm making this album, Jerry.
All right, can you just hear me out, please?
I'm making this album, or I'll never make an album with you again. All I want to do is drink now, Jerry.
Well, let me get you into a program.
I'm in a program, but I need the church. I need the spirit. It has always gotten me through, and it would get me through again.
Okay. Well, can we just, just think about this?
This album is not for me or for you or anybody else. This album is for God, and you can't jive God, Jerry. So stop trying.
Oh, I'm not trying to jive you or Jesus, okay? It's the gospel record.
What I love about this scene is that she exemplifies what Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, Yat karoshi, yat ashnasi, yat johosi dadasi, yat tapasasi konteya, tat kurushva mad arpanam. Where Krishna tells Arjuna, he tells us, he tells you, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever austerities you perform, do it as an offering unto me. In other words, Krishna or God is saying, give the fruits of your work to me. Use your work as an offering to me. And in the particular case of art, or for example, music, glorify me. Glorify me. Make me the object of your music. Right? And that's what gospel music, that's what, Baroque classical music was. I mean, for example, Handel, I heard, Handel, the famous, Baroque music composer, used to sign every one of his compositions with the words "in the glory of God" or "to the glory of God." In other words, I'm dedicating this to God, right? Gregorian chants, Catholic or Christian Gregorian chants, Ave Maria. That's again glorifying, having God as the object of one's music. And in the more sort of recent development, you have, American gospel music, which was very much developed in the African American community as well as non-African American communities, with like churches today such as Hillsong Church and stuff, where where God, Christ, whatever, God is the object of music. And that falls in line with what Krishna says, that, that whatever you do, do it for me. Right? So here we've got Aretha Franklin. She, just before this scene that you saw, she fell into the depths of alcoholism. That's what she talks about. I'm in a program. All I want to do right now is drink. So she just got herself into a seven-step, Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever, a drug rehab or an alcohol rehab program. And she's depending on the Spirit, as she says. The Spirit is always got me through. So she's going back to her Christian roots. She grew up as the daughter of a Christian pastor. And what I find amazing is that she says, you know what, I'm going back to basics and I'm going to make an album dedicated to God. I'm going to make a gospel album, because that's what she grew up. I mean, she grew up singing in church, like Sunday after Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. That's all she did. So all these songs about Christ and these gospel classics, that's what she grew up with. So she wants to do a gospel album. And as you can see from the scene, her producer, her Jewish friendly producer, says, come on, no one's going to listen to this. The audience is so limited. And she's like, I don't care. And then her line, the following line, I find so touching, so powerful. And it totally exemplifies this Yad Karoshi, Yad Ashnashi verse from Bhagavad-gita 9:26 or 27, where she says, I'm not making this album for you. I'm not making it for me. I'm not making this album for anybody. I'm making it for God.
Think about
This album is not for me or for you or anybody else. This album is for God. And you can't jive God, Jerry.
See, usually in this world, we do things for ourselves, or maybe for our extended selves, for our family or for our friends. We do things, for example, in show business especially, we do it for money, we do it for fame, so that we can have a lot of popularity and become really famous, and be a star, right? Have a hit. And of course, have a lot of money and all that. But here in this case, she's like, I'm not doing this for myself. I'm not doing this for others. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for God. Let God be the ultimate beneficiary of my activities. You see, in the Bhagavad-gita 5:29, Krishna makes he says something that's another very famous verse, which actually Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, used to call the peace formula. Back in the late 1960s, when there was the famous Vietnam War in America, he told his followers to go and speak on this following verse, which I'll just recite now, and he called it the peace formula. And what is that? Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam. I, Krishna says, or God says, I am actually the beneficiary of all sacrifices, of all austerities. In other words, we are actually meant to do everything for God, because by definition, at least according to God's own statement, He's the one who's supposed to benefit from all our activities, all our austerities. And one could say, well, that's pretty unfair, that's pretty selfish. Well, not really. I mean, if God is the one who actually gives us our life, gives us, our sustenance, who allows this whole nature to work according to our desires and, with a lot of extra mercy, not a blade of grass moves without God's sanction, they say. So if that's a fact, then obviously, and if we, ontologically as souls, Jivera Sarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas, that's another verse from the 16th century classic Chaitanya Charitamrita, which describes our ontology as souls, namely to be servants of God. If that's the fact that we, all of us as souls, you are a servant of God, ontologically as a soul, then it follows that, in this world, incarnated in whatever body you may have and having whatever talent you may have, serving God in the sense of dedicating your work to God and dedicating the fruit of your work to God as much as possible. Of course, you have to, live comfortably and have your family and pay your taxes and all that. But at a deep down, the deep level, offering this whole life as an offering to God, whatever, that life involves and includes, is the most natural thing for us to do. Now, what's really amazing is that this producer, he said, okay, fine, let's do this album. So they made an album, and this 1972 album, which was recorded in 2 days live at an evangelical Christian church in Hollywood in Los Angeles, right in church. It was like basically a church service that was recorded live, and she just felt really inspired, and she sang all these classic, gospel songs. And what's funny is that contrary to what her producer said, namely that, you're never going to get an audience, no one's going to listen to this, or the audience is going to be really, really small. It's divinely ironic that this 1972 album called Amazing Grace, that album of Aretha Franklin, was the most widely sold and popular album of her entire career. And mind you, her career, spanned decades, right? I mean, she was still singing for the inauguration of the president of Barack Obama a few years ago. So her career spanned from, the late 1960s to, the 2020s. So we're talking like 50 years of a career, and of her entire career, that one album, which was exclusively dedicated to God. Like she said, I'm not making this album for you, nor for me, nor for anybody. I'm making it for God. That album was the most successful of her career. So you should feel inspired by that. Whether you have a spiritual calling, and if you do especially, then you should totally go for it, because you should see that, God will give you the strength, God will give you the support, God will maintain you as you, communicate God's message to others. And even if your, inclination is to be spiritual, but not to be like a professional, quote unquote, pastor or teacher or communicator of Krishna consciousness, or you can only do it part-time, but you actually feel really inspired to become an architect, or to become whatever, an engineer or a professional tennis player, whatever. Do it, but remember that God is at the center of your life. God is at the center of your life. And if we continue living like that, remembering that we're just making this offering of our life and acting as best we can, as morally as possible, as morally as we can, and as God conscious as we can, and trying to, set a perfect example for others to see and to follow of our own God consciousness, then we can, believe that we'll have lived the best possible way in this life. And we can believe also that we'll have pleased God or Krishna in the best possible way too. Thanks for watching. By the way, I'm sorry for making only a few videos a month, because I have a French channel, and I've dedicated a lot of time since I've moved back to Europe, at least for now, and I'm based in France. So I make a lot of videos on my French channel. It just takes a lot of time to make the English channel. But please do subscribe. Please stay tuned, share it. And once again, thanks for being a follower, not a follower in the sense of follower, but thanks for spending your time and listening to this message. And let us continue, staying strong by being connected, by staying connected, by making an effort to stay connected to God or to Krishna. Take care. Talk to you next time.
1, 2, 3, 4!